And today we'll be creating So this video is going to be broken into two different segments. One, we're going to be doing the background, and then in the other one, we're going to be doing the actual text. Down in the description is the link to creating the text itself. So let's just get started with creating the background, and then we'll be combining them both at the end for the final product. All right, jumping over into DaVinci. Here is our title sequence that we created, and then we're just going to go right into Fusion and create that whole background with it flying in and everything else. So it's pretty simple. First thing we're going to do is create our Fusion comp. I'm going to create mine at 24 frames. You can create yours at whatever frame rate you want, but I'm just going to do 24. Let's close some of this stuff up. We're going to double click to open up our comp. Once we're in our comp, we'll see the media out. We'll just move that to the side for now and close our media pool. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create the candlesticks. It's a tool that's used in the stock world. So we're going to first pull down a background node and pull in a rectangle mask and connect them up. Pulling the background up into the viewer, we'll then view it up here. If you have yours set as 2, you can pull it into 1. But for now, we're just going to be using one viewer. The rectangle itself, we're going to change the width of it to make this pretty small. I'm going to hold down my control key to get a bit of fine adjustments here. And I'm actually going to take this down to 0.003 to get that thickness. And I'm going to bring down the height to 0.02. Or no, whoa, no, that's not it. 0.2. Let's go with, no, 0.4, 0.3. Okay, 0.3 looks great. We're going to then move this over, and instead of just trying to get these all perfectly spaced, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this every 0.05. I'm going to be creating one. So there is my first line. And then I'm just going to make this white just to make it more visible, and then later we can color everything. I'm going to pull down another background node and pull down another rectangle mask, connect those up. I'm going to connect these both together so I can see them together by going out of the one background and then dragging into the other out of the other background. And then they're both connected here, so we're just going to go from this merge, drag it up into the viewer, release, and then I see it up here. We'll just quickly change this to white as well. And then in this rectangle, I'm just going to make this smaller so that we have a little guy for our candlestick. So doesn't have to be perfect, the same dimensions that I'm using, but one thing that we do want to do is just have this at 0.05 so that they're both on the same, or both together, so that they'll move as one little unit. And then I also am just going to round the corners. This is up to you if you want to do that or not, but I'm just going to round the corners just a little bit. I think I'm going to do it a little bit more. Something just like that. Additionally, now in the video, I had these little candlesticks moving. So the only thing that we're really going to be having moving is this up and down motion of just this smaller chunk. And to do it, I'm just going to come to frame 0. So this is your playhead here, the orange. We're going to bring it over, well, reddish orange, because I guess that's yellow and this is orange. We're going to bring this over to frame 0 and set a keyframe. And then I'm just going to come up a couple. So like, let's say frame 15. And I'm just going to change the position there just so it does a move just like that, as you can see. But we want it to constantly do that same move, so we have to make a loop. So instead of making keyframes every 15 frames, we'll just come into the spline editor and get where our keyframes are here, and then click this button so we can see them all. I'm going to highlight all of my keyframes, and then I'm going to hit F to ease them, just to smooth the transitions from one keyframe to the other. And then make sure that they're both highlighted. We're going to right click on one of the keyframes and we're going to set loop. and then ping pong. And what ping pong will do is it'll start at one keyframe, it'll go to the other, and then it'll work its way back to the previous keyframe. So it'll just go back and forth forever, just like that. And I only had to set 2 keyframes. So now I have this one set. I need to pretty much just copy this whole group. Control C, Control V to paste it. And I'm just going to connect this merge to this merge, just like this. And connecting the two, and then all we see is everything just duplicated. So we're just going to come into this first rectangle, and we're just going to change this to 0.1. And then we're going to come into this other rectangle. We have 2 keyframes, so X and Y are both keyframes, so we have to go into both of them. So that's our first keyframe. Just clicking this little button, we'll go over to our other keyframe, change this to 1, and then if I play this, it'll be the same exact thing. So one thing that I would want to do is come into this this particular rectangle. As you can see, it is 2_1, and that's just because it's copy. Anytime you copy, it just does an _1. So I need to be able to see this, but I don't see it here. So we're just going to open up the keyframe tool, and I'm going to come over here and click only selected tools. So because this one is selected, let's move these over a bit so we can actually see this. Because this one selected, it's highlighted, only that one will show up here to make it a little easier, because this is going to start to get hectic pretty quick. I'm going to click on this drop down, and here is that path that we had keyframed. I'm just going to click on it, and when you click on it, it'll show up over here. So we'll close our keyframe editor, and then the same thing over here, only show selected tool. Then we'll have our selected tool. Clicking this button, it'll show the actual keyframes, not the path that is in the loop. It'll show the actual keyframes. Then we can just retime these if we want to. So I'm just going to move this over to frame 9, I guess. And you can go to wherever your keyframe is. So we'll move our playhead here, and then we can change how these keyframes interact. So I'll move this one down, and I slid over to the other keyframe so I could edit that keyframe. So now we have these two going back and forth. Okay, this would take a long time to fill this whole thing. So an easy way to save time would be to just take each one of these. So let's just view just this one again. We'll bring it up here. So we're just viewing just this one. To save time, all we could do, or all we would have to do, is just hit Shift Spacebar, and it'll pull up this tool so we can get whatever tool we want. And then we just type in merge. Then we get this merge node. Let's just disconnect this for now. If we connect this merge node up to just this one tool, so we'll connect it to the background, and we'll connect it to the foreground, obviously, and we play this, you're just going to see the same thing. But what you can do with the merge node is you can change what is happening with the foreground. So we can come into here and we can move this around, right? And this would be a pain in the butt to line these up and get it to work for our needs for just this particular project. So an easy thing we can do is we can just use these flip tools. So I'm going to double click this to reset, and we'll click this button and click this button. So I flipped it from left to right, and then I did the other one top to bottom. And now if I play this, now I have one on the other side. It might be similar, but you add enough of these, you won't even notice that they're just copied. You will know it, I'll know it, but no one else will know it. And because we have this merge down here, we'll just do the same here. So this one coming into here, and then hit these two buttons, and now we have this going on. If we connect from this merge to this merge, we're going to get another merge. We're going to get a ton of merges going on here. But we'll just play this one, and then we have our current project of this going back and forth. And there is a little bit of, you can sort of notice this. So what I like to, or you can sort of notice that it was just copied and flipped. So what I like to do is come into every 2 or 3, or I don't know, just a random number. I click this button to not have them flipped upside down and right side up. And that they'll look the same there, but once you fill these up, everything will look like, they're all random. Other thing that I like to do is so that they're not on this perfect plane and that you will get a lot of lines going all the way across. I like to come in. So let's say this particular this line, wow, brain fart. We'll just move this up just a little bit, and then just make sure that this is sliding actually on the line. As you can see, it's going past it. So we'll come to frame 0, come into here for this keyframe, and we'll just move it up so it stays on there. So now if we play this, that's kind of what we have going on so far. I think that's looking pretty good. So that's kind of the idea that we're going to do all the way across this. So, and you can do them however you want. You can make them longer, you can make them move real slow, you can make them move fast. But the idea here is to make them unique enough between each one on the left and unique on the right as well, by primarily just flipping, having this flip on or off. So I'm just gonna go through here and create a couple more, and then once I'm done with this, we'll come right back. And then again, don't forget to change up the timing. Don't forget to change up the timing on these bouncing back and forth. Don't keep copying it and making it the same. Okay, so now that we're finally at our final one here, obviously, if we change this to 0.5, this is just going to be a middle. We don't need to have this merge in here anymore, just because we only need one there. So something to be aware of, I guess. So go through here quick. Do this. Come into here. I'll just center that. Come to this. And just make sure that it's not leaving. Alright. So there we go. It's going all over the place, and you kind of can't tell that it's all the same. So now that we have all of this, right, we can just we're just going to grab a plane and connect that over, and then we can take all of this here and highlight it all and just hit Control G, and it'll just turn it into a group. So now we don't have all of these crazy things all over the place. The next thing I'm going to do is just grab in a camera. We're going to connect the camera to this image plane, and then we're just going to grab a renderer and connect the renderer to the 3D. And then if we view it over here, let's close this and get this here, and click on our camera. You can pull this back and obviously see this in space. So that's one element pretty much done. Now let's create the other element. There's only one other element, or there's two other elements, but one that we have to create, and then the third one is just particles. So the next one is it's pretty much the same thing that we had here. It's just bars themselves that are moving. We don't actually have to make the sticks. So these are a little easier. It's just grabbing a background and then a rectangle mask, connecting them up. Let's just view it as one viewer. So this is what we're working with, and we just have to make these a bit smaller, shrink them down, something like that would work. And for these, I'm just going to just do like 1, 2, like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and so on. And I'm going to make these white as well. And that's pretty much it. And then we just come to the beginning, keyframe, come up a couple of frames and move it. So that's pretty much it. So grab this, paste it, just connect these so we can see them together, bring it over here, go to our keyframes, change this from 1 to 2, come over here, same thing, and then just move them. One other thing, don't forget to loop these keyframes. So we'll just highlight them, I'll ease them, right click, set loop, ping pong, and then it'll ping pong back and forth. And I'll do the same for this one as well. All right, so there is that. We're just going to copy this bottom one, paste it, connect it, go into here. We're at our first keyframe, 3, 3, and currently these are kind of like moving together, so I'm going to have the first keyframe come down. And the reason why it's currently like an outline and you can't really see it is just because we're not playing that viewer. So we'll just switch it up so you can see it like that. I'm also going to change the timing on this, but just remember to pay attention to make sure that you're on the right tool. Bring this back, looks good. Take these, paste them, connect them up, show it over here. And for these, you can also do the same thing with switching these to the other side. So you would just do a merge and then connect the merge to both sides and then just flip it. So connect it, flip it. Just grab these on the end here, just move them out. And connect this up, just like that. Flip, and this one, flip and view it. Pull this in here. Okay, and then for this one, 0.4, come over, 0.4, there we go. How's this looking? You can barely tell that, you know, that they're, I'll just do that so that they go the opposite ways. Whoa, 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 whoa. There we go. Opposite ways. And then maybe for this one, not have it go opposite ways. There we go. And in this guy, I'm just going to have it not shift as much or more like that. There we go. And maybe change the timing on this particular one. So coming over to our spline tool, getting our keyframes, just grabbing this like further keyframe and just changing that timing again, just so that they don't look like they're in sync with one another. You know what I mean? That's pretty much the biggest thing. Okay. Then all we need is just one more, so we don't need to copy the merge. Just one more. We're going to connect this one because this one's going to be right in the middle. This one's going to be 0.5, right in the middle. Come to our other keyframe. I think I made an extra one here. Yeah. There we go. All right. And then we'll just change its position. So I'll have it start down there and come up to like there. And I think I want to change its speed as well. So I'll bring this back. There we go. Got stuff moving all over the place. It's looking great. And we'll just grab a image plane from right here, connect this over, and we'll just take this stuff here, highlight it all, Control G, make it into a group to clean this up. If we ever need to go back into one of these, you can just double click and then you can see all the nodes inside there that are running that. But we'll leave it like that for now. Let's just view what we got going on here. I'll do two views because I'll bring the second view to this so we can get perspective. And to move the camera around, I'm just holding Alt and then middle mouse button to shift the camera around like this. And I'm going to click on the element that we just made. I'm going to shift it around, maybe pull it down just a little bit, and we're going to change the color of this. So I'm going to click on the materials, and we're just going to switch this color up, and the same with that background. We'll just switch that color up. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to do it the other way around. So this one is kind of like a tealish, more like in the green. There we go, something like that. And then we can also grab another plane and connect this into there, and then connect this here. And we can take this guy and we'll like shift it down maybe, and like in the back, something like that. And for this one, we could 180, so then they're just switched. What's on this, you know what I mean? So they look a little bit different. And come in here, we'll make this a little more on the blue side. So something like that. So that's kind of the idea for the majority of the materials that we're going to be working with. The next thing that we have to add in here are some particles. So we're going to click right here. We're going to get a particle emitter. Then we're going to get like a particle renderer. And we'll just connect these in. And then we will just view them here. And currently it's just a ball. So we'll click on the emitter. And we'll change a couple of settings in here. The first thing we're going to change is we're going to come over to the region, and we're going to change that into a rectangle. And just for working on this project, I'm just going to change this to 2 by 2. And then in the particles themselves, we're going to change them into little circles. So we'll grab the circles, and we're going to come to the beginning here. So we're just moving our playhead back to the beginning. And I'm going to change this to 20 pixels. And so how this works is this is the number of pixels that spawns each time. So as we move up, it's producing 20 more pixels. And we only want 20. So we're just going to move up to frame 1. And we're going to turn this down to 0. The other thing we have to look at is lifespan. So when a pixel, or why do I say pixels? When a particle is spawned, it has a lifespan. So we're just going to change that all the way up just so that they stay alive indefinitely for this project. So that's kind of what we have going on so far. So we're just going to drag this into the merge, the 3D merge here, and we have them there. We're going to come back over to the emitter because there's something else that I just noticed that we have to change. We're going to come over to the styling of the particles. Size. We're going to change the size and move the size down to something that seems a little more reasonable. And we're going to go back to viewing this merge over here so we can see that. Okay. I'm going to go down in size just all the way down to just 0.02. So there we go. And then just turning this a little bit, I'm going to bring these back just like that. And then I'm going to, after this renderer, I'm just going to hit Shift Spacebar and get a duplicate 3D. I'm going to create that, and then I'm going to change the amount to, let's go with 5. So we have 5 copies that we're going to be making, and I'm going to zoom out a bit. Currently we're on our duplicate 3D. I'm just going to, because that's the controller that's here. I'm just going to click on the controller and pull this out, and now we have 5 copies of that original thing that I had. I'm going to come down, change the rotation to something crazy. So let's do 600, just so that they're all over the place. And that's kind of it. The other thing that we could do is come into the emitter, and then in styling, we'll close this, and in color, we can set the color. And I would probably color it something similar to one of these 3 colors. So the first one we'll just do is red. So that's good. Now I'm just going to take all of this, copy it, I'm going to paste, and we're going to make particles that are each of these colors. So I'm just going to then connect this up, and then in the emitter, I'm just going to change the color quick to maybe like that tealish color, or let's go with the bluish color first. So something like that. And the other thing that we can do is on the emitter itself, because we're copying off the emitter with the duplicate, the emitter itself I'm going to move, which will move everything. So we'll just move this back there. But as you can see here, you can't really see it, but there's a dot here, a dot there, a dot here, a dot there, a dot here, a dot there. It's like everything is like being produced exactly the same. So all we have to do is come over to here and just change this random seed to something else, and then they'll spawn in a different position. So that's kind of it for that one. So we'll just take all this, copy it, paste it, connect it up quick. I want to zoom in. To zoom in and out, all you're doing is hitting Control and then wheel mouse out in this area to zoom in and out. And then clicking on the emitter, we're going to change the seed, come over to here, change the color to something else, and then on the having the emitter selected, we're just going to shift this and change the position of that emitter. So now we have them kind of all over the place. Okay, so that's kind of it for how to create this. Only other thing that we have to do now is make it seem like it has a lot of depth. Make sure that you're saving, because once we start to get into this a little bit more, we're going to be adding a lot more stuff that is going to increase rendering quite a bit. The other thing that we're going to add in here is after this merge, we're going to go Shift Spacebar, and we're going to get a duplicate. So the duplicate's currently not, because I got the wrong one. Clicking on here, Shift Spacebar, duplicate, but we want duplicate 3D, and then we have it here, it's connected. The other thing that we're going to do is after this duplicate, we're going to get another merge. And the reason why we're getting another merge is because we want our camera to show up after all of this. So we'll just bring it over here, connect our camera up. Why is this a normal merge? It did it again. There we go. There we go, connect it up. Now this duplicate, I'm just going to do a duplication of 3. I'm going to shift this over and make sure that I'm viewing this one, because we can move all this and not actually see it. So we're viewing this right now, and all we're going to do is having this selected, grabbing on here and moving this back. Just like that. So now we have 3 copies of everything. Here it looks like utter trash, but that's fine because we'll add something else in to fix that. But that's kind of what we currently are at. Make sure you save. So now for this camera, so that it doesn't see that deep into everything, after this merge, or after this duplicate node, we're just going to get fog 3D. For once I actually got the thing correct. And now this fog is applied to everything in relationship to the camera. So I'm going to pick a color. So everything I'm just going to be basing off of like red pretty much. Bring my fog down so it's a dark rich fog. And then we're just going to change our fog distance down. And as you can see, everything in the background is starting to get darker. So we'll bring it down to something lower. I don't know, something like that. So those other ones really aren't showing much. And let's play this merge over here so we can actually see our camera. We'll pull our camera back. And if we don't have this fog enabled, we can see everything. It's super bright. Once we have it enabled, all that stuff in the distance dies down. Once our camera gets closer to it, those things will brighten up, so then we'll be able to see them. But when they're off into the distance, obviously just like fog, you won't really be able to see it. Okay, so Now, this is kind of where we're at. Everything that gets added after this is going to add this much production value, but cost this much in rendering expense. So I would say just kind of play with these things until you get something that you like. If you want to add everything, then you can add everything. But these things are going to start to really compact that that render time depending on your hardware. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to be adding in a bunch of movement for the camera. So we're just going to keyframe all of that up now. So the first position that we are going to start, I think that this is a perfect first position. So I'm just going to, I'm going to increase this a little bit so we can see these first ones just a little bit more. This first, we're going to go to our camera, and then over here, I'm just going to keyframe its position, and then I'm going to come to the end of our timeline, and then I'm going to push in our camera all the way to the end. So something like this. But what I just noticed is I don't like the positioning of this, because I want this to be higher so that there's a bigger gap in the middle. So I'm just going to fix that quick. I'm going to come back over into here, and this one's our red one. I'm just going to rise this up just a bit, maybe punch it back a little, but rise it up. And then this blue one, we can come down a little bit on that too, maybe back. Okay, so come back to the beginning. That looks good. And the other thing that I want to add in here is we had like a spin. So I'm going to take my camera, we're at the beginning on our timeline, and I'm just going to go 180. I'm going to keyframe that, and then come in 1/3 of the way, something like that. Here, great. And I'm just going to click this button to flip it. And so throughout all of this, we're going to have some type of a rotation going. But what I need to also do is come into our spline, and I want to ease the this camera move here. So I'm just going to highlight it, hit F, then hit T to get our easing in. And we're going to just increase this to like something like that. And then this is our zoom. So I'm going to ease that as well, because once it gets to the end, I want it to slow down when it's going through like that end stuff. So I'm going to increase this quite a bit. So it's zooming quick, and then as it comes to like this point to here, it's like going pretty slow. So there is that. That's our camera move. Now, here is one of the biggest impacts on render times. We're going to click on our renderer. We're going to click the renderer to OpenGL. That kind of increases render times, but what we're going to be adding, we'll start to decrease that. Enable accumulation effects. I'm going to turn this up to 20. Oh, not 2. No. 25. Jeez. And then I'm going to turn this down to like 0.0002. Something like that. Or maybe. Okay, yeah, like that. Let me see what it looks like at the end. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Just a subtle amount. Yeah, that's way too much. That actually might be better. I like that better. Okay, so now we added that. Here is one of the big ones, motion blur. Because our camera is spinning, we want to have that motion blur in here of everything, you know, going with it. But I want my length of motion blur to be even more. So just like when you have time lapse, you have the shutter open for a longer period of time. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to change this to 360 degrees for my shutter angle. And then I'm going to increase my quality to 25 to just have really smooth motion blur. Looks great. Okay, moving on. So now coming out of our renderer, first thing we're going to do is add in a glow. Glow effect always makes things look pretty cool. you kind of just play around with this until you have a look that you actually like. So let's have this render quick, and that's kind of the glow that we have. I'm going to reduce this a little bit. So something of that nature. The next things that I'm going to add is I kind of want to have like that anamorphic feel. So anamorphic lenses, what they end up doing is the sides of a shot are kind of like blurry and they're kind of wonky and stuff. So I'm going to add some anamorphic-esque to it. It's not going to be true, but it's just going to give a feeling of you're in like an old school lens. So I'm just going to, after this glow, I'm going to do a transform. I'm going to just add another transform right after that. And for this transform, I'm going to come over to colors. I'm going to disable everything. So this is only going to process the red channel. Come over to this one. This one's only going to process the green channel. And all I'm going to do is just shift this ever so slightly. So 495, and then come over to my other one and shift this 4. So they're just shifted ever so slightly apart. Let's play this. And that's kind of what we end up with, but we don't want it to look that crazy. So we're going to add in a mask. I'm just going to mask both of these because we only wanted to have it affect the edges. I'm going to invert it, and then I'm going to make it wider. And I think that's fine on how high, but wider. And if I bring my mask over here so we can see it, all we're going to do is soften these edges up quite a bit. So there, like that. All right, and let's make it a little wider now that I softened them up so much. Okay, so now these edges, you know, they have a little bit of, stuff going on with them. All right, so then after that, we're just going to add in a blur, and we're going to go with actually zoom blur, and we're just going to connect this up because we want to have that same effect only to that same area. And we'll view it here, and all it's doing is it's that shift that we had, it's just blurring that shift a bit. I think I'm going to increase the strength just a little bit, something like that. So everything looks good, it's just on the outside, it's just, you know, a little wonky in color. And then to like bring this together, if I was to render this, obviously it's going to have something in the background. It's not going to be transparent, so it would have a black. But I want to add an additional feeling in the background of like a lit up fog, hazy-ish look. So I'm just going to bring in my black background, and then I'm going to bring in a 2D fog. And I'm just going to connect this over top, and we'll view it. And then in my fog, I'm going to make the fog red and change the plane like that. And also going to bring in an ellipse tool, and we're going to soften it and make it kind of like a tall, soft. And maybe like bring the fog opacity down. Come back a little bit. We're starting to make it look pretty cool. And you would honestly just play around with this until you get something that you like how it looks. I think that's starting to look pretty cool. So the only other thing to do here really is in the fog, you could just change the distance on how foggy things are off into the distance by just, you know, moving this down or increasing it to whatever you feel fits. So if we want like that, we would have to get obviously closer to those objects to be able to see them. I'm gonna bring it back to, let's say like 10. And so now we can sort of see things off into the distance. I'm gonna actually take this and make this a bit bigger, just so that we have like more of this sort of thing going in here. Yeah, maybe bring down the intensity of it, something like that. Okay, then just once you're done here, we can just put this onto the timeline and then be able to pair it up with the title that we had. But the easiest way to go about doing this is just to bring this to like a media out, go onto the timeline, and then once we're over here on the edit page, you just grab your Fusion comp, you bring it on the timeline, and then just render this out like you normally would a video. Reason being is because if you let it cache, it's going to render it to cache, and then it has to render it out again. So if you feel that its current position, how it currently looks, is fine, then you can just render it out. If you did want to work on this and be able to see it better, you could just right click in here, turn off motion blur, turn off high quality, potentially even turn on proxy. And then if you come into Fusion and go into Fusion settings, there's settings here for how much compression you want when it has everything in cache and it proxies it. So that's something else to look into if you did want to reposition some of the different elements and stuff like that. Now that I'm actually looking at this, I think I'm going to come into here, and I think I'm going to reposition. I'm actually going to reposition this guy. Gonna bring it forward a little bit. And that blue one, is this the blue one? Take the blue one, push the blue one back, just so that there's a little bit more depth in here. I think that looks good. Okay, looks good to me. Alright, yeah, so then you would, like I said, be able to view this, and by turning those off, might enable your computer to render this a little bit better. But once you're done, you have it, your output node there by media out. Bring it onto your timeline. Then just go over, render it out quick, and then once it's rendered out, then we'll finally put the two together. So after rendering everything, I noticed that there's a couple of problems. I'll just put this on loop and go through a couple of them. One, if you just take a look at this like little ball that's right here, it keeps coming back, and there isn't any rotation. So that's one thing I wanted to change. Also, the copies that go out, I thought I rotated them, but maybe I didn't, because it seems like all of the copies going all the way out, the red's always at the top and this blue's always at the bottom. So maybe changing that. And then also the fog that's on the background, maybe dimming that down and spreading it out a little bit more. Other than that, it looks pretty good. So I'm going to fix that quick. Additionally, I probably set something too high somewhere with like motion blur or something of that nature, because the render times for this project were a bit longer than they were when I was initially working on the project for the like the beginning when I was first developing this tutorial. So I'm going to take a look at some of the parameters that I had selected and see what I can do to fix some of that. So the first one I want to fix right out of the gate is the duplicate. I'm going to change that to 180. So we have this one, and then it goes up, and then it's flipped back around. So that's one of them that I want to do, and that's going to eliminate some of the blue dots. We can also go into our, let's see here, this duplicate, and let's just change this to something else. What is this? change that to something else as well. Okay, hopefully that fixes that. Now, into here, I'm just gonna drop this down. Curious what kind of quality I will get out of changing that. And if I view this, this background here, I'm just gonna widen it out a little bit. And maybe it seemed like it was very like clipped, like it was right around that ellipse tool. So increasing this amount, it'll blur further so it won't seem, yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna render this out quick and then call it a day. Alright, so here is the second video. It's looking a bit better. The that center one's flipped. As you can see, there's red on the bottom for that. I think this one's doable. So I'm just going to get rid of the Fusion comp. It's right here. Then we're just going to bring in our rendered version as well as our title. I'm not sure that both of these will line up. I ended up just cutting off half of this ending when it goes solid, so something like that, just cutting all of this off. And just bringing it over. Something like that works. And then your project's pretty much done. There's not much more to do outside of that. So then all you have to do now is just add an audio track and you're pretty much good to go at that point. Not much more to do outside of that. So with that said, that's kind of where I'm going to stop this one. If you still didn't make the title, down in the description there's a link to that. If you decide that you want to support me or you just want these files, there's a link down there as well to download this project. But with that said, let me know in the comments what you guys think about this project. If you have any other ideas or suggestions I should do in the future, leave them down there as well. Again, my name's JR and thanks for watching.